Brandon Ingram's gone from New Orleans. Didn't know what to say last night, but I'm going to try to come on here and maybe justify it a little bit. But as a fan who's seen this core of Brandon and Zion and Lonzo and all the pieces that have come in between, it hurts to realize that this team was never even capable of winning a playoff series, and Brandon Ingram just traded for virtually a lot of pieces that aren't going to do much for this team. And looking at the future, it seems a little bleak as a Pelicans fan. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to Kellogg Sports HQ. Unfortunately, today is not such a happy or, interesting video. It's more of a fan reaction to the Pelicans dealing Brandon Ingram. Now, this trade deadline has been all over the place. Some wild trades: De'Aaron Fox, Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis, Jimmy Butler, Mark Williams to the Lakers, all kinds of things. Also from North Carolina, that one hurts too. But here to talk about Brandon Ingram, and wearing my Brandon Ingram jersey at the moment now. But this trade just burns. And having Ingram on the Pelicans for 7 years, this guy had some incredible moments. Now, injury riddled and never quite lived up to the most improved and all-star potential that he showcased really at a young age. And I found myself today, I saw the trade last night, it was just somber, couldn't talk about it last night. I wanted some time to think about it and to really let it marinate. But it hurts. It hurts losing Ingram, and for the scraps that we were able to pick off the Raptors. Now, I can come in here and try to cope and talk about the future of this team, which I'm gonna do a little bit, and there's some bright spots for the future of the team. But when it really comes down to it, you gave up Brandon Ingram for a first-round pick, a couple of bench guys. Bruce Brown probably won't be on the team next year, and I know he's going to walk in free agency, which we'll break down in a minute. But as a fan, I couldn't even come on here and talk last night. I didn't know what to say. It was just rough. So in this trade, I'm pulling up the details now. The Raptors are going to get Brandon Ingram, and in return, the Pelicans get Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a 2025 second, and a 2026 Pacers first-round pick that's top 4 protected. Now, these individual components, Ingram this year, kind of a down season, but still 22-5-5 for him. And going to the Raptors, the Pelicans could have re-signed him last summer. I think the number was about 4 years, $208 million or something. Said no, he's not worth over $50 million a year, which he's not. I mean, take it as it is. You can't pay a guy $50 million a year to ride on the bench that has showed that he is not capable of leading this team to win a playoff series. And you get back 8 points a game, Bruce Brown, 4 rebounds, 2 assists for Brown, 1 steal. Olynyk averaging 7 points, 3 rebounds. Now, Olynyk is a guy that signed for a couple seasons, I think, and he is kind of a stretch big. Pelicans need backup, big rotation. With Misi, he's young. He's got a lot of potential, but he is very young. So I don't hate the Olynyk addition. As well as the first in 2026, it's the Pacers. They're not really a contender, the Pacers. They're going to be kind of at the end of that play-in to playoff push. So pick probably in the teens, which the Pelicans have drafted really well. So maybe that person can turn out to be a big-time contributor. But odds are that you really just didn't get much, and it's better than letting Brandon Ingram walk in free agency for nothing, and maybe it helps the team bottom out a little bit more at the end of this season, but it hurts. And yeah, so Bruce Brown, he's in the trade just for money pieces. He went to Toronto from Indiana as part of that Siakam deal for $23 million a year-ish, which is a lot, and he was just signed for a 2-year deal. He's probably going to walk in free agency, signing a minimum to a contender. But if the Pelicans can keep him around, maybe he'd be a good bench piece, maybe a forward. The Pelicans need some forward help with Ingram gone as well. So to grade this trade, I think the Raptors, I'm going to give them an A-. I mean, for the player that Brandon Ingram is, to give up Bruce Brown, who wasn't going to be on your team next year, Kelly Olynyk, who doesn't have a big role, and a future first, it's not yours, it's from the Pacers, who are probably mid-lottery, I think it's a win. Now, the question for the Raptors here is, what is this core able to achieve? What's the ceiling of this core? You've got Scotty Barnes, quickly, RJ Barrett, now Brandon Ingram, and Jakob Poeltl, or maybe you'll go get a center for the future, but I guess it's on Scotty Barnes to really step it up. But I don't know how this team climbs out in the Eastern Conference of being above a 4 seed or winning a playoff series or two. I don't think that they can really compete with the Clevelands and the Celtics and some of the other great teams in the Eastern Conference, as well as even have a chance to run with the teams out west like OKC that are really dominating. So we'll see for them. Now for the Pelicans, I think I would give this a B minus considering the circumstances. Now, I don't want my emotions getting away and give this one a C or worse. Maybe it's a C plus, but I think B minus is better just because Brandon was going to walk in free agency. The Pelicans weren't willing to re-sign him. You get something, and Jakob Poeltl can be, not Jakob Poeltl, Kelly Olynyk can be an addition for this team that can play, as well as you get a future first, and it's kind of addition by subtraction in my opinion, giving Trey Murphy more of a role to excel. So, considering the circumstances, and this may be a cope, you can let me know down in the comments, but I really think it's a B minus, maybe a C plus for the Pelicans. Just considering everything that you had, it's hard for Griff to really do much more with these circumstances and Brandon wanting out, and thankfully you avoid a worse trade that could have come where you get no first round capital or you get no contributing member. Pelicans are historically bad with injuries, losing DeJounte Murray at the end of this season, which I'll talk about in a minute. But on the other side, the Pelicans are fantastic at drafting players. You look at Herb Jones, second round guy, actually part of that Anthony Davis trade, which makes it feel a little bit better. All defensive team last season, drafting Trey Murphy outside of the lottery, who's poised to be a superstar. Talk about him in a minute as well. The future of this team kind of rides on Murphy, as well as Jose Alvarado, a great bench piece that's also in trade talks today. Yves Missi in the newest draft, who's fourth in Rookie of the Year ladder. Pelicans finally get kind of a stretch big, a good defender, who's a great pick, and that guy's just developing so quickly. But as well as Jordan Hawkins, who's having an off shooting season, but still a great shooter as well. And all these guys were drafted out of the lottery. And you look at the Pelicans, even some of their decisions that you might consider misses at the time, in that Zion draft with Jackson Hayes, who thought was going to be a stretch big, he's still playing for the Lakers, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker also playing for the Timberwolves, playing big minutes off the bench. And this team just finds ways to pick up talent, but the talent doesn't usually reach its potential in New Orleans, which is what really hurts. Look at Dyson Daniels, traded to the Hawks, and he's been a fantastic player for this Atlanta Hawks team. While they're struggling overall, they might have won the DeJounte Murray trade just because of how good Dyson was, and Dyson wasn't going to get a role in New Orleans like that. So that one hurts as well. Josh Hart, obviously, to New York. Yeah, with this Murray injury, it's an Achilles tear. So he's expected, says here, to return, and it's 9 to 12 months from the time of the surgery, and the surgery was this week. So that puts you in a tough spot. And knowing the Pelicans' medical team, I personally wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't even play next season. So then you're in a really tough spot with who you drafted and what kind of assets you gave up for Murray, and really what the future of this team is. The Pelicans need a point guard. Murray's a great player for this team, but the Achilles tear is going to hinder him. And even if he comes back, who's to say he's going to be fully healthy? Who's going to say he's going to have a Kevin Durant impact after the Achilles tear? It could be more like Klay Thompson, where he just never quite finds his form. Coming in, they're on a 7-game losing streak right now. It's been tough. Second best odds behind Washington, who really stinks, and they just gave away Kuzma, their best player, at the first overall pick. So, to me, the only future where this current construction of a team with Zion, with Trey, with Herb Jones, and these guys can really turn it around and make some noise, is if they can draft a real game changer this season. And you get Dylan Harper, Cooper Flagg, or Ace Bailey. Those three guys are going to be game changer for this team. And now I would like Cooper Flagg. Obviously, I mean, he's the best college basketball player I've ever seen. Saw him in person drop 42 against Notre Dame, and he missed 2 shots in that game. Unbelievable talent. He's can control the pace of the game on both sides. I'm looking down the roster here, looking at the points per game for this team. Trey Murphy leading the way, 22.5 points. He's been on a tear this past week or so, over 30 points a game on about, I think, 50-60 shooting. So he's just been incredible. CJ McCollum, 22 points. Brandon Ingram, 22 points. DeJounte, 17.5 before his injury. Herb Jones, 10. Zion, 23. Zion only playing 15 games, obviously, with some injuries. Misi with 10 points. And you go just down the list, and it seems like this team just has an unbelievable amount of talent, but can never really get over the hump. And it hurts to see Brandon Ingram, who maybe we once thought could take a jump to be that kind of big-time player, but never had the injury luck. The team around him never had the injury luck either to stay healthy enough and really put it together. And Ingram was just not really able to carry this team like you would expect a superstar to do. And so for that, the Pelicans, he's not an all-star right now. The Pelicans are like, we're not going to keep a guy around and pay him $50 million if he's not an all-star, if he's not healthy. And I think they're choosing Zion. I think Zion just brings something a little bit different to this team. And you've got Trey Murphy, who you feel like is going to be a better player than Ingram in the long term. He's younger, better shooter. He's not a mid-range killer, but he's a better three-point shooter. He's a better defender. And I think you do this trade to clear up space. At the end of the day, Murphy is going to be the one getting opportunities on this team in the future. And I think the future of the Pelicans really comes down to Trey Murphy. Can he take a leap to superstardom? Can he be a 28 point per game scorer? And if he gives you that, if Zion's hovering around 28 and 5, you get DeJounte back and you find a way to draft someone or bring someone else in that can be a ball-dominant contributor. They're going to need DeJounte back healthy. Hopefully next season. I mean, I would love to see DeJounte back over Christmas. At least we're not the Chicago Bulls or the Sacramento Kings and just losing assets for basically nothing. But, man, I don't know what I'm going to do with this jersey. It's going to be hard to really buy into what this team is doing. I just don't know. I don't know what the outlook is on the future, where they can really go. I guess part of the future depends on Zion. Maybe this Luka trade elsewhere can really get Zion to buy in some more. But it's hard to say. It's hard to say that Zion's actually going to be healthy, that this team is going to avoid injury luck for even a full year. Can they have a big, like a core play 60 games together? I mean, they haven't even come close to that. The big three this year, DeJounte, Zion, and Brandon didn't play a single game together. Well, all I can really say is that at least Brandon Ingram didn't walk for nothing, like Lonzo. At least you got some pieces back. And maybe it shows that this team has a plan for something else. Maybe they'll swing in another deal at the deadline. But closing the page on Brandon Ingram feels tough as a fan, knowing that this core, Brandon, Zion, Lonzo, Drew Holiday, all the guys that they've brought in, CJ, everyone else, this team has never been able to get it done. And it hurts as a fan thinking about what could have been, all the injuries and everything that kept us from achieving what we're really capable of. But on to the future, I guess, and it could always be worse. So, well, with that, I want to thank you for tuning in to Kellogg Sports HQ. Has some new content coming out, along with a new college sports podcast I've been working on coming up soon. But thanks again for tuning in, even on this dismal video.